All right, so we're diving deep today into baseball. Mets fans, you know what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
Pete Alonso and his future, or lack thereof, with the New York Mets. This is
A big one.
big one, yeah. The articles you sent over on this, wow, there's a lot to unpack.
Yeah.
It's a fascinating situation. Like, just to set the stage for anyone who hasn't been following this too closely, this is a crossroads for Alonso, right? I mean, his future with the Mets it's really uncertain.
Yeah, it's a really interesting situation. It kind of feels like a tug of war, right, between the Mets and Alonso's camp. I mean, you can tell they want him back. The Mets, I mean, you just get that sense.
Oh, yeah.
But it all comes down to money.
Dollars and cents.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they've made it clear. The Mets, they don't want to overpay.
Yeah, and it's interesting, reading what Mets president David Stearns and even owner Steve Cohen have said publicly.
Yeah.
They both say, like, really great things about Alonso, but there's always this, like,
This but.
this but about a fair price.
Yeah, exactly. But at the right price. You know what that is? Classic negotiating tactic. Publicly, they're super supportive. We love Pete. But behind closed doors, I guarantee you, they've got their number.
Yeah, they have a number in mind.
They know what they're willing to spend. And you got to remember, the Mets have other holes to fill on their roster, other needs.
Right, and maybe even, I mean, who knows what the future holds, right? Maybe even bigger.
Oh, yeah. Bigger free agents they've got their eye on down the road.
Yeah.
So they have to play this carefully. Can't just throw money around.
You make a really good point about, even though we're talking dollars and cents here, this is more than just, a
Absolutely.
standard transaction. Because Alonso he's a fan favorite. Huge in New York.
You're the rock star in Queens. Like, for real. You go to Citi Field and you see his jersey everywhere.
It's true. It's more than just baseball. He's like part of the fabric of the city now.
And the Mets know that.
Yeah, and they have to know that.
Oh, for sure. They're aware of that. That connection that he has with the fans, that's huge. Like, intangible. Teams would kill for that kind of brand loyalty.
Yeah, and then you throw Scott Boras into the mix. I mean,
Yeah.
his agent.
Oh, boy.
Now we're talking about a whole different game.
Boras is a whole other animal. He does not mess around when it comes to contract negotiations. He's like the shark of agents.
I know. I was reading about him. Like, he is notorious for squeezing every last penny out of a deal. He gets his clients the best deals.
And he's willing to wait it out. He's patient. He's not going to just jump at the first offer. He'll play hardball.
Yeah, I was reading about how he uses those opt-out clauses
Oh, yeah.
to give his clients more flexibility
Right.
and leverage. And I was also reading that he's like a master at using other contracts, like what other players have gotten as benchmarks, to constantly push the market higher.
Yeah, it's a chess match with him. He's always thinking a few steps ahead, anticipating what the Mets might offer and then figuring out his next move.
So it's not just like a one-to-one negotiation. It's like he's looking at the entire league.
He's playing 4D chess while everyone else is playing checkers. And, it wouldn't surprise me at all if he uses some of those contracts that, other big first basemen have signed recently, like Freddie Freeman or Paul Goldschmidt, as leverage, to say, look, this is what these guys are getting. Alonso's worth at least that.
Right. So he's setting a high bar for Alonso.
Oh.
So, I mean, we've talked about all the different angles here, but just as a Mets fan yourself, like, where do you think this is headed? Do you think the Mets are going to match whatever comes in?
Yeah.
Or are they going to let him walk?
That is the million-dollar question, isn't it? I mean, honestly, I don't know. It's so tough to say. The Mets are in a really, really tough spot here. They've got to balance their budget,
Right.
but also their long-term plans for the team. And then you have this massive emotional connection that Alonso has with the fans. It's not an easy decision. I mean, it's a fascinating case study, really, in just the business side of baseball.
It really is.
Yeah.
And I think it raises a really interesting question. Yeah, and this is for everyone listening. How much weight should fan sentiment have in these kinds of decisions?
Yeah. That's a great question. And it's a question that I think every team struggles with, right? Every front office. Because on the one hand, you want to keep your fans happy, especially when you're talking about a player as popular as Alonso. I mean, you don't want to alienate your fan base.
Right.
But on the other hand, you can't let emotions completely dictate every single decision you make. You have to be smart about it. It's a really tough balance to strike.
It definitely is. Well, I think this has been a really, I think we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have. And I think, the listeners sent in some really great articles that really highlighted the complexity of the situation.
Absolutely. And this is definitely something to keep an eye on. I mean, this story is not over yet.
No, not at all. And, I think as this story unfolds, I think it's worth asking ourselves, how much should fan sentiment matter? Is
Yeah.
it a factor? Or is it a purely business decision? I mean, those are some big questions.
Yeah. Food for thought for everyone out there. All right. Thanks for listening, everyone. And thanks for your insights on this.
My pleasure. Anytime.